friends from Sweden brought beautiful weather with them. I appreciate the gift. I also appreciate the turnout. I know we are competing with a small event taking place on Capitol Hill right now, which might go on for longer than this, so I'm sure we'll pitch up on that as well. But it's a real privilege today to be hosting a talk on Sweden. I've had the pleasure, the opportunity and the pleasure to be working with the three gentlemen to my right. I'm going to introduce them in a second. For the last few years, I've known Magnus for a long time, and going to Sweden and seeing the kind of work that they do. They are the top experts in the country, looking at issues that I would say only recently have really become discussed in the mainstream, both in Sweden and outside of Sweden. I think from an American perspective, I think the image of Sweden is very idyllic, perfect country, and it is obviously to some degree. I have people from the Swedish embassy, so I would say again it's a perfect country. But of course, there have been quite a few issues related to extremism that have become very disturbing over the last few years in Sweden. Magnus was among some of the first ones to highlight those dynamics already some 10 years ago, if not longer. But the mobilization that we've seen related to the Islamic State over the last few years have really brought to the fore some of these disturbing dynamics that existed in Sweden for a long time. I'm really the last person who's qualified to discuss them, but that is why we brought here, or we took advantage of the visit to the US of the three speakers we have here. All three of them have been working with the Civil Contingency Agency, MSB, in Sweden, that has commissioned several studies on several extremism-related dynamics in Sweden, and the work that the experts have been doing has been part of this effort in trying to understand these dynamics in Sweden. So this is a long introduction to then get to the actual introduction of the speakers. And this is the order in which we're going to be speaking. To my right, we have Magnus Landstedt from the Swedish Defense University. Magnus needs no introduction. I think Magnus is a regular feature in the Washington circles, comes here very often. I'm very privileged to have him here at the program again. To his right, well, actually, we're going to skip, and then the second speaker will be Aya Kambom from the University of Malmö. And then finally, with concluding remarks, kind of bringing it all together and really admiring your jacket, Eli Gunder, I really appreciate it, it's an Italian. Eli Gunder, who will be speaking about related issues, kind of bringing all the comments from Aya and the idea is then, since it's an informal setting, as most of our workshops here at the program are, to have it as a conversation, to have questions from the audience, and really leave the last 20 minutes, more or less, of our time together as a conversation. So, without further ado, Magnus, please.
Thank you so much. Let me just navigate myself over here. Thank you so much, Lorenzo, the entire team at GW on extremism. Fantastic work that you're doing. I want to thank also the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency for their support, because without their support, this work probably would not have been done. And I would have to say that we're going to try to give you a holistic view of the Islamism, but also violent extremism that occurs in Sweden. As has been said before, we have done a number of different studies in relation to this environment. Probably the most detailed studies that have existed, I would say, outside of government in the EU in relation to this Salafi jihadism that occurs. I would call it the Salafi jihadi ecosystem because there's often a tendency just to look at individual cases. And of course, in Sweden, this environment has increased over the years. It is partly due to the fact that there are we have quite an active violent extremism environment, not just Salafi jihadism, but also right-wing extremism, as well as left-wing extremism, and they are of course interacting with each other. But you can see here the stark rise in the different in the different types. Over 2,000 of national security concern in Sweden that the security service is keeping tabs on. And as I said, 700 right-wing extremism. And I want to mention that because I'm seeing the same kind of conditions that we saw in 2013, 2014 in Europe, but also particularly in Sweden, in relation to the rise of the far right. And there's a spectrum from neo-Nazis to alt-right to more populist parties that I think we have to be quite concerned